Hello! Ho, ho, ho! And welcome to a new episode of Talking Snooker with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Once again, talking about the game we all love.
We are indeed. Yeah. Merry Christmas, everyone. I think we're all right saying that now. It's the 11th of December as we're recording. And we are talking soon. We're talking shootout, we're talking Scottish Open, and we're talking a bit of Christmas, sure.
Even a couple of Scrooges like me and you, Phil, I think 2 weeks is enough. We'll allow a bit of light and love in for 2 weeks. That's fine. And yeah, the big day's coming up, but we've had some big snooker days. My goodness me. And we must say from the top, Phil, congratulations to Tom Ford, a ranking event winner for the first time at the age of 41. Ford beating Liam Graham in the final of the shootout in Leicester for glory. Great line, isn't it? We had Tom on the podcast here in February, and he's such an engaging character. He's been scrapping away on tour, not just for years, but for decades. I think it's not speaking out of turn by his own admission. There's been a belief issue with Tom over the years, but what might this do for him belief wise? I mean, we've seen him with other players before. It's a tournament win, it's a ranking win, whether you think it should be or not. He obviously doesn't himself, but it is. And well, wasn't he emotional? We should say we are sorry to hear the news about Brian Todd, aren't we? Who sadly died a few weeks ago, and whose funeral Tom went to on day one of the shootout last Wednesday. I spoke to Brian a couple of times at the Crucible. I made a bit of a beeline for him one year. So are your recognisable face? Talking a bit about Tom, he was massive regular. If you watch Crucible Snooker over the last 20, 30 years, you might not know Brian Todd, but you'll know the face. So it's really sad news. He was Tom's sponsor, really good friend. So obviously Tom said that win dedicated to Brian, but he's really emotional. That added to it all. And there always seems to be something about the shootout winner, but this one I think will go down in our memory banks, eh?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Tom's speech was very memorable at the end there. I don't think he's a kind of guy to get much emotion out of at any point, really. So you could tell how much that meant to him. And yeah, not just a sponsor. I know he was mainly described as his sponsor, and he of course was, but Brian was a really good pal with him and went everywhere, even on tour for a long time. So yeah, terribly sad news. Strange sort of parallels with when Hussein Vafai won the tournament a couple of years ago, and his grandma had just died just before, and he said he nearly pulled out, but played and went on to win it, and this pretty much what Tom did. So strange similarities there, but very emotional in front of his hometown crowd as well. And yeah, the first ranking event. I mean, he sort of just completely disagrees with that, doesn't he? He doesn't see this as a ranking event, and he thinks he has won ranking events before because those PTCs he won did carry ranking points, and he's insistent that he definitely is a ranking event winner. But there's no doubt about it now. He definitely is in everyone's eyes. So yeah, lovely stuff for Tom and Liam Graham. Equally the story. I know he didn't win it in the end, but unbelievable run to the final out of nowhere. But that's what the shootout can do. It throws up. They're not really huge surprises because anyone can win a frame. But for him to get to the final was a surprise, and it was great to see because he was loving it. And it's nice to see these guys who slug it out in behind closed doors qualifiers most of the time, don't get many wins to have his day in the sun. So I was really pleased with him.
Oh, definitely. And I like the way you said, I think, at one stage on social media, that he wasn't just an unexpected player, he was an unexpected Liam. It wasn't the Liam you'd have first tipped to do it. I mean, it was just that, yeah, great story, wasn't it? And, well, we've had all manner of different kind of shootout finals. Quite a lot, just top of my head, seem to have been won with decent breaks. Certainly the recent ones. This was the opposite. I mean, it was anyone's. I think again used the word tense. That word tense was doing the rounds. I mean, boy, was it! I mean, my goodness. Um, I don't know how certain you. I was fairly certain Liam Graham had it won with 2 minutes
Yeah.
left. I mean, was it inexperience? I don't know because that red he missed, and he missed by a mile. Really, was not hard. But I mean, credit to Tom Ford. He got the job done. It was anyone's final. It was tense. It was tight. For about the first 3 or 4 minutes of it, I thought take away the actual sort of time element and the natural sort of frenetic shootout timings. It's like a normal frame. They were both chipping off the pack, playing safe. I think it was 1-0 into the fifth minute. I was saying, the story of a bloody lifetime shootout. Why this ends 1-0? But I mean, in the end, it was Ford that got the job done 31-28, but only right at the end. He potted the blue in the final few seconds and then arms aloft, and the victory was sealed. I did feel sorry for Liam Graham because I mean, should's a big word, but almost where the balls were and where the frame was, he probably should have won that actually. But listen, Tom got the job done. It's not as if he hasn't had many painful defeats in his much longer career. He's more than double the age of Liam. So we're glad to see it, aren't we? And it adds to this. I mean, it's happened a lot throughout the history of snooker, but it seems like the last sort of maybe 5 or 10 years, we've had so many players that at a certain time in their life that have either never done it or very rarely done it. And what a lovely narrative. That's what we might not have had actually so much in the past, eh? We are getting more now because there's simply more events. So while you would get the odd fairy tale with Doug Mountjoy all those years ago winning the UK at a certain age, of course it happened in the past, but you get more of it now. And there's all sorts of heartwarming stories across snooker for so many reasons. But those guys that are strapped forever never quite got that big one or ranking one on the board. To do it then, we're all delighted, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah, it's lovely to see because this is a lot of hard work over a long time, and when Tom Ford set out on his journey, I mean, the shootout wasn't around probably, but he didn't set out to win the shootout, but um, just that feeling, that's what people go to work for as a snooker player. You want that feeling at the end of the tournament, lifting the trophy, you're the man. And that's what he got. And as I said, in front of his home crowd and everything, extra special. And yeah, he sort of fits the mold of a shootout win, isn't he? It's not always the same. We've had the odd complete shock, like Michael Giorgio a few years ago, but it's quite often those guys just below the elite level, but somewhere between sort of 20 and 40, 50 in the rankings who you always think are capable, but they never quite get over the line. They can do it in the shootout. And he fits that bill. But yeah, no, it's great to see. It's not a lottery. Each frame you can lose each match without doing anything wrong, really. But to come through seven, you've got to do a fair amount right. And even in that the final, I did interview Liam Graham the other day, and he said it didn't get mentioned much, but Tom played one shot, which I haven't got to watch back actually, but I think he potted brown maybe, and then he had to go into two reds and develop both at the same time, and he played it perfectly. And Liam was probably biased as he was sort of bigging up the guy to beat him, but he reckoned it was one of the shots of the tournament, especially under the pressure and the situation he was in. So yeah, that small but incredibly important clearance was very good from Ford, and yeah, thoroughly deserved winner.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, you sum up the nuance of the tournament very well then. It is often those players. I mean, we'll come to it. There's 3 or 4 times now I sort of think, Selby's probably going to do this. He's just looking so good. He's not even like he's just slightly winning his matches. He's winning them all comfortably. He's playing pure
Yeah.
Selby snooker, but he just doesn't quite happen at the end. But in fact, it was Liam Graham that beat him brilliantly in the semis. But yeah, you're right. It is all often Mark Allen, of course, the recent example of a brilliant, brilliant player that did it last time. But yeah, it's usually those sort of guys just below the very, very top level of the game, and they've got all the quality. But again, as you say with Giorgio, then the real outsiders. Most of the time it's guys that have either done it or been very close to doing it, like McGill, for example, when he won it. I mean, Tom was in 2 ranking finals last calendar year in 23. In the more traditional form of the game, and he's long been capable. In fact, he was in the Paul Hunter Classic final. I look back, and of course, he was. Going back quite a lot of years, in the best part of a decade actually. So he's been there and done it. He's been, as you say, he's. I think he made that PTC's point when he was on with us. Worth listening to that episode back, by the way. A strong, strong appearance from Tom on a number of levels, talking about his own game. Some of his stories and characters he's met over the years. So he's an interesting snooker guy, Tom Ford. One of perhaps in an underrated way, actually, not quite
Yeah.
mentioned enough. But he's one of those when you get to know him, the beauty of this format and the long form. When you not just our podcast, but others he's been on too. He's a really interesting character. So we say congratulations to him and have a look back, maybe a bit more at some of the other matters. Well, I really wasn't able to watch much of the first couple of days, so I know you've kept an eye on some of the earlier moments, Phil. We'll go through the last 16 results onwards with detail on that final night. But I mean, some of the things I obviously watching clips on social media by you. Lou had a good win, didn't she, over Jamie Clark? But the dramatic finishes, we always get them. But a couple were absolutely like Nop on Sankam beating David Lilly. I mean, David looked delighted, Phil. I mean, he looked absolutely, oh, yeah, he was really pleased with that. He was not a happy man. And, well, Andrew Higginson was definitely the finish of this shootout for me, unless I'm missing one. And maybe the finish of three or four. I mean, we always get great ones, you forget them as years go by, but it was crazy. And I think, as you made the point, it didn't seem at one stage like he was massively rushing. I mean, he just timed it very well, obviously timed it perfectly. But look at the table, and I had to look back at it again because I realised I only sort of seen clips of the end bit, not the whole thing. And sometimes I love the way that still pictures can tell more than videos, I often think, in this sport. And with 90 seconds left, he was 55-15 down with an awful red to middle to start, real nice, horrible red. Green on the cushion, the bulk end of the table. Other sort of balls spreading around, not exactly ideal. I was thinking of the percentage chance you give him. I don't want to be sort of rude because obviously he's a very good player, but maybe no more than 10-15. It looked so odds against. It was a marvellous effort.
Yeah, amazing. And because I think it was because he was doing it so sort of deliberately, it didn't really look like he thought he could do it. And I think Dominic Dale was on commentary and even said, "Oh, I wonder how close he can get to this." Like it didn't seem like a genuine possibility. And then as the closer he got, it's like, "Oh, he is going to do it." And a couple of crazy shots because I think he played a really bad positional shot on the final off the final red. I think it was the pink that he had to play up to the green pocket. Um, yeah, it was just remarkable stuff. So impressive. And yeah, that was I think that was on the third day, wasn't it? And there was a few in quick succession. Noppon beating Lily was soon after that. And there was just a failed one just before where Matthew Stevens had a chance to beat Wu Yiza from quite far behind, and then had a few seconds to put, I think, the brown and just rattled it in the jaws, and that was the last ball he needed. So yeah, it was. I feel like there was more crazy endings in this one than previous editions. I mean, I've got no way. I'm not going to go back and check that, but it just felt like I watched a lot of it, and it felt like there was an awful lot of real last few seconds drama. So it was excellent. But yeah, just running through the first 2 or 3 days. Didn't seem like there many shocks early on. We saw a few faces that people will not have seen before. You know, young Joe Shannon from Ireland. He pushed Rob Milkins very close. We saw Sophie Nix from Scotland, Daniel Boys, we've heard a lot about. He was there. None of them got over the line, but nice to see them. Kowalski was looking good early on. I think Mark Allen opened the show and just looked very, very much in control. And we thought he could go deep again. An early good finish was Joe O'Connor beating Sanderson Lamb, where Lamb looked well over the line and he went in off, which is, it was quite unfortunate actually. But again, O'Connor was a bit like Higginson. He looked like he wasn't rushing anywhere near enough, and there wasn't much time to get over the line. But he's got that sort of Zen quality, Joe, and he did it. Got the win. Then day two, there was another amazing finish. Riley Powell beating Stan Moody. If you haven't seen that, then have a look. Stan looked to have that frame wrapped up. Sort of messed up a safety shot, got a double kiss, but then Riley like fluked this plant that he was going for. He potted it not how he's meaning to, and then I think he won it on the blue at the end. Bayulu beating Jamie Clark was great viewing. She continues to impress. Star of the present, really, but she could be really good. Interesting quirk that they mentioned on commentary. I don't know if you heard this. If you didn't hear it, who do you reckon is the most played shootout match ever? Two players have played each other for the fourth time in the shootout this year.
Oh, no, I wouldn't know that.
I mean, that is very
No,
hard to guess if you don't know.
no, I'm afraid I'm going to have to say I'm not sure about that one. What's the answer, sir?
Because Alfie Burden played Ben Wollaston for the fourth time in the shootout, and
Wow.
Alfie won it and took his record to 4-0. He's won all four of them.
4-0.
So yeah,
That's a bit mad, isn't it?
it is mad. Yeah, I mean, just in
Oh.
this random draw when for them to play four times this tournament is very odd, and for Alfie to win all four is even odder. But yeah, if anyone's ever in the hardest pub quiz ever,
Wollaston must be sick of the sight of Alfie Burden. It's like,
yeah.
oh no.
Yeah, funny one. So yeah, if you're ever in a very difficult snooker themed pub quiz and they ask you what's the most often played shootout game, it's Alfie Burden versus Ben Wollaston. Um, and then yeah, Krash Gurbashani will give a shout out. He did so well. You won't have seen much of him before either. Player from India, not been on telly maybe at all actually. He'll be on. You'll have seen him on some streaming maybe if you looked out for him. But played some brilliant shots. Beat Lepe Fan on that day too to come through, and he went quite far. It was very impressive. Yeah, then day three I mentioned those few clearances. Joey Long hit the only century of the tournament, 101 against Louis Heathcote, very impressive. Um, Gradinari, Vladislav Gradinari was going well. Kowalski was going well, but Selby and Robertson, like you mentioned with Selby, those two were still lurking as we went into the final day, and Selby especially just looked so serene. It looked like he was sort of not getting involved with the madness of the shootout. It was just sort of brushing people aside, and he looked a warm favourite at that point. And he kept going, yeah. And then so we're into the last 32 on the Saturday, the final day. Robertson fell straight away. Liam Pullen continued a great run there. That was very impressive. Florian Nussler beat Joey Long by 1 point. That was very good for the amateur player that everyone sort of is rooting for. We know he's had a lot of close calls for getting on tour. He had been a bit of bad luck on that front, so nice to see him doing well. Yes, I'll be continuing his fine run, and Liam Graham. That was the highlight of his run that to that point when he beat Ali Carter from behind. When I spoke to him, he said that's the best dish he's ever produced, and he made a good point actually, which is right for a few of these shootout breaks. They're just clearances that you would never see in any other tournament because they start with ridiculous long reds that you would never take on in a normal frame. But because you've got a minute to make 40 or whatever, then you just have to take them on and they go in and then, you're away from there. But they're just little breaks that just would never happen in other circumstances. And it makes for these incredible little clearances. So yeah, remarkable. That was an example of one of those. And then we're pretty much into the last 16 from there, I think, Nick.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, you couldn't have wrapped all that up better. That was superb listening, even for me as your podcast co-host. I felt like a listener there, Phil. I think, yeah, that's good stuff. It really is, and yeah, because we know Ali. I remember watching that one now. It was a brilliant clearance. I mean, he did his best to look as sporting as possible, but I've got the feeling he was sort of seething inside with that. You always get the feeling with Ali, he's got the other guy's got this temerity to beat me. It's one of those. It's one of those classic sort of faces of his. But I like that. Yeah, I mean, I think Mark Williams is he might be the classiest player I've seen full stop in my lifetime playing snooker on some levels. But he's the classiest guy I've seen playing shootout snooker. Mm. But Selby's not far away. Selby's not far away because he just makes it look like it's all so smooth. It makes the game look easy, as they often always do, of course, those guys at the very, very top of the game, but within the limits of having to be quick with the time, otherwise they're in trouble. But they don't seem like they're in trouble. It's brilliant to watch, actually. It's a real masterclass. And that carried on from Selby because he beat Liam Pullen 80 points to nil. I say, continuing his serene progress. And then you mentioned Kowalski. I know he was getting quite a lot of bouquets for his performances, and but he lost in the next stage. He lost 30-18, close one to Florian Nussler. Andrew Higginson had a good win. He beat the aforementioned Andrew Higginson. He beat Alan Taylor 42-3. I've got the feeling he might have had a few runs, Alan, actually, in this. I quite like to see him really, really go deep. I always think, can he go a bit further? Never quite right to the very end, but he's obviously quite likes to shoot out. Wu Yiza 46, Elliot Slesser 43. A very, very close match there. Martin O'Donnell ended Robert Milkin's hopes. He won 55-31. It was Huang Jihao 50, Robbie Williams 11. You mentioned Quraish Gerbatsani. Yeah, terrific one for him. You're right to hail him. He was getting quite rightly a lot of attention, but he was beaten by the eventual tournament winner, Tom Ford, 55-26. Liam Graham beat Nopon Siankam. He's beaten good players. That's the thing. He beat Ali in the round before. Now he's beaten Nopon Siankam. 59-7 as well. So, good comprehensive win in that match. And then, let's just go through the quarterfinals as well. Then back to you, Mark Selby, 104 points. Florian Nussler 1. That's a break of 90 from Selby. Wu Yiza 71. Andrew Higginson 6. 71 from Wu, who just looks classy. He just looks like a terrific snooker player, doesn't he? Whenever you see him, you think, the silverware, it can't be far away, frankly. I liked the scoreline. Liam Graham 19, Martin O'Donnell 13. Proper proper score line, that Phil. A real sort of a low scoring one. And then it was Tom Ford, 64, Huang Shihao, 23, which left us, we'll talk about the semis shortly, Graham and Selby, Ford and Wu Yiza. But yeah, some notable ones there, a few close ones, but again, brilliant from Selby, brilliant from Wu Yiza. And yeah, as you say, Craig Gerbaksani really doing well, but having to give way there at the last 16 stage. So the mist was sort of clearing, hard to predict, but as we said, one all-time great in Selby, but also, Ford, Wu. It's not a lottery. You're quite right. The flip side, I think, which you also mentioned, is there is always the thing, and Mark Allen's always saying this, I think, you can just turn up playing really good snooker, feeling great about your game, and you're out, though, because you play one shot and the other guy can win. That is unfortunate. In that sense, it hits towards the chance. There's an element of chance, I think, is more of a word to use. But it's not a lottery because you still have to play good snooker and you have to hold your head and all that. So we're seeing good players getting through. And yeah, any particular highlights from those two rounds when there were some good performances there?
Yeah, of course. And yeah, another one there that people won't have seen or won't have even heard of. Huang Jihao, not seen much of him, new on tour this season. He's not a youngster, I think he's 29, but very much under the radar before this tournament, but all the way to the quarterfinals. Played some good stuff, beat some good players. And yeah, like I said about Craig Gerbashani and a couple of others, these are new names for a lot of people, certainly new faces on TV. So that's what's brilliant about this. And you see them all interviewed. Well, a lot of them actually, not all the ones, but you see them on telly getting to show off their stuff. So that is a really nice thing about the shootout. But yeah, Wu stands out for me every time I see him. He's just sort of making such good progress up the rankings. He's 20 odd at the minute. He's destined for the top 16. He's still going in Scotland this week. So I mean, his first bit of silverware is not too far away.
Mm.
And it looked like it could easily have been this week. We'll get to the semi-finals, but he was one ball away from the final here, and he looks like the kind of player that could easily win the shootout in the years to come. He's such a good putter, and yeah, I mean, he's obviously got to develop the other side of his game as well. But it's not bad. He's still beating a lot of players and looking very good doing it.
He is, yeah, and into the semi-finals, and they were both sort of curious and interesting affairs, actually. I mean, Selby, the first one, you think, oh, he's the first one to get in here. I think Selby's going to get in the final here, probably. But Liam Graham poo-pooed all those ideas, Phil. He cocked a snook at that, and he won it 38-20, held his nerve, and just a very fine win. And that, obviously, he had confidence anyway, but beating Selby, my goodness, he was, brimming with confidence then going into the final. And the other one was Tom Ford 37, Wu Yiza 32. It was a blue ball shootout, actually. And I can't quite get my head around it. I tried to look at a video, but I follow it on Amazon Prime and I couldn't get it up again. And I mean, Tom, bless him, won the tournament, so who am I to criticise from the armchair? But he played an extraordinary sort of negative shot right at the end where he just played safe. And it's like, sometimes they'll do that. You think, oh, that makes sense, just to kill a bit of time. But there was still enough time left and points, you thought. And he could have potted the red, but he chose to just play it sort of safe and kill a bit of time. He thought, oh, my God, Williams has still got time to do this. He did. He got red and a colour. I thought, oh, Tom will be kicking himself. But as it happens, he smashed the blue in and Wu Yiza missed it. And you don't normally see, well, I say I don't know, you don't normally see guys missing the blue first time. I know that's quite true, but I was surprised he missed it. I thought it would go for 2 or 3 each type thing. That's more sort of regular. But yeah, I don't know if you would call that, but it's a funny old match. And listen, when your head must be fried, actually. And that reminds me, a few people have said that. Steve Feeney was one that responded to something I wrote on one forum saying that he was there and obviously he knows the players really well. And they all come out, most of them saying, I just didn't know what I was doing half the time. I didn't know where I was. They're just so they're literally feel like they're just buzzing. They're wired, So again, it's easy to sit here, but I thought, oh no, you made a massive mistake there. You could potentially draw or win this. He ended up drawing it, but as I say, he held his nerve for the blue ball shootout, which we love, don't we? They're the ultimate snooker zone penalty shootout.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see a few more of them, to be honest. And I was surprised. Obviously, that is pressure cooker stuff in the semi-finals. But Wu is up there with the best long potters in the game at the minute. So if I was backing anyone to be good at that, he would have been right up there. So I was surprised he missed the first one. But yeah, it's tricky. You think you're making the completely sensible decision, I guess, when you're playing safe in those situations. But the more I watched of this tournament, the more I thought, if you've got a chance to stay at the table, definitely do it because there were plenty of flukes going on. People coming to the table and having, half a shot or something that is very unlikely to pot. So you think you played a good safety, but plenty of flukes going in. So you just got to stay at the table if you can. You can always play a safety shot off the next shot if you have to. But so yeah, it's hard to criticize, as you say, he went on to win it, and sometimes that is the right decision. But yeah, my advice would be, if at all costs, stay at the table if you can. Um, but yeah, no, exciting stuff. And added to the drama in a mad way when all the sound went off and no one knew what was
Oh
going on.
God, yeah.
But it sort of added to the absolute chaos of the whole thing.
It seems and no sounds was your line, wasn't
Yeah,
it? I mean, that was that was. Oh yeah, yeah. And I was even like, is it my computer? Probably everyone did
yeah.
this. Like I was on the BBC going looking at like highlights of rugby and football that day. Is this? Oh no, it is. It's working everywhere else. What's happening? Um, I mean, listen, you know, obviously you could see what was happening. But yeah, funny how you rely on all the sort of senses, if you like, and something was a little missing there. And yeah, real drama. Came back in time for the final. I think they delayed it a bit, didn't they? While they were sorting out
Yeah.
the technical issues. But well, the final did take place. It was Tom Ford, Liam Graham, as we said, 4 won it 31-28. And congratulations to him. And maybe we should move on and talk about the crowd, which I know we want to do. Before that, let's say that you are listening here to Talking Snooker with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Well, I think some fans of the shootout crossed the line this year, Phil. I mean, I was getting messages over the first couple of days. Phil, I messaged you and said, "Is it different?" And first sort of look, and I really only tuned in properly from last Friday. I was thinking, well, I mean, it's always sort of rowdy, and I think because a year's a long time in our lives, frankly, people forget. Well, it's actually just rowdy every time. But I think people were sort of sending me examples. The group stand, there's only one Greg Wallace when Elliot Leicester was at the table. And then on the last day of the tournament, a fan shouted out egg fried rice after Wu Yiza played a shot. And there were other examples too. People were saying, I mean, we've all got too busy lives to go around looking at footage from the whole tournament type thing. But there were examples of people going too far on quite a number of occasions. Not a particularly good advert, I would say, really. We asked WST for a response. This is what they told us. They say, we do have more security at the shootout than any other event. It's not always easy to identify people who make comments due to noise in the arena. There were, however, quite a few people removed this year. The WST is going to listen to the comments that we've received, and will always review things each year. We do encourage crowds to be involved. You always get a few people to spoil it. We still do want to attract young people, and obviously that they said also that football has similar issues, so we know that there is swearing, for example, and bad language and inappropriate language in other sports. I mean, a bit different in the sense that we never really had it in snooker, and people don't normally aren't allowed to be noisy in snooker. This is the only event, so it's something that did stick out for sure. I mean, what my view, I think overall is, I think it needs a bit of a lighter approach, really. I mean, I don't think people mention the word pantomime. A few people defending it so much as pantomime. I think, well, if it was pantomime, it would be great. We want more pantomime and a bit less stag weekend, is what I would say. And I don't know, if you've got people there and everyone's saying, oh, this is sort of mad, it's bonkers, it's absolute carnage. I think that's laying it on too thick. I think let the event and atmosphere speak for itself. Um, I think if you bash people over the head with stuff, there'll inevitably be some that sort of take things too far. So it wasn't good. It created bad headlines, but WST have responded and said they will listen. So I suspect it'll be a lot better next time. I suspect that some of those comments will be toned down. And there was a difference between afternoon and evening, wasn't it? Because I was asking WST, what are you actually aiming for with this event? And I'm not convinced that they quite know the specific answer themselves, apart from something with a good atmosphere. I mean, and I don't know if I really know what is it supposed to be a family atmosphere with loads of oh and all that sort of panto thing, or is it supposed to be people getting drunk and shouting things, or is it a mixture of both? Because I would rather them go down the sort of pantomime fun route with some boisterous rowdiness than the shouting out silly things, because some of those things are they came from the 1970s for me. Enough talking from me. Over to you, Phil.
No, yeah, of course. Some of it was completely acceptable, unacceptable. Some of it was acceptable. Some of it was unacceptable. Um, but yeah, I suppose. I mean, it's out of your hands, really. I mean, a crowd is a crowd. You can't choose the atmosphere. It develops itself. And of course, it's a booze problem. As you say, the afternoons were not so rowdy, in the evenings, Friday, Saturday night. I mean, I think when this got announced, when we first mentioned this, whenever this year we mentioned Friday and Saturday night before Christmas, it was going to be rowdy, and you'd have got very short odds on someone taking it too far and saying something really stupid that they shouldn't have said. Um, but it is the nature of crowds in Britain. It's going to happen. I suppose. I mean, my thought is just better policing, isn't it? Better policed by security there. They need to be, with WST, so there's more security staff. There should be as many as possible, keeping an eye and throwing people out who have acted inappropriately. And there should be I don't know. I wasn't there. There should be warnings if there aren't already, saying that will happen to you if you cross the line. Um, because the other option, the only other way to sort of guarantee that no one does anything like that is to not have a crowd that shouts out at all. Play it in complete normal snooker rules, or with no crowd at all. And I think that's extreme, because I think it is good. The interaction is good. People do enjoy it. Um, so yeah, I don't think we want to go to those lengths. Some people probably will, because some people hate the shootout. But in my mind, it was just you know try and get rid of the idiots as quickly and as effectively as possible, and let people enjoy it. But yeah, in terms of what WSC want from it, it's sort of out of their hands, because you can't, the whole like yellow thing and the whatever they chant, all the different balls and all the different players.
But
No
that's
one's been
fun
told
though.
to do that.
But that's fun though.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah, but that's just developed over time. But some people hate that.
Mm.
That's it's not fun for everyone. And then yeah, so we just got to see what happens. I would say I agree. Like, it's not going to solve problem overnight, but all this talk, there's all this sort of nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Oh, everyone's on the full fat coats. Everyone's had a few pints of Pepsi. It's all meant very well intentioned. I'm not having a pop at anyone for saying all that stuff, but if we sort of tone down the oh, everyone's smashed lines, then that might sort of negate it a little bit. And even the players, Matthew Stevens came off his first round game and got interviewed live on Eurosport, and he was steaming. I don't know how much he'd been drinking, but he was obviously pissed. Tom Ford said Jimmy White asked him how he'd prepared for his game. I think his first or second round. He said he'd been at a bottomless brunch for 2 hours. Which, if he has, you can do what you want, but maybe don't say it on the telly if you've done that. So yeah, maybe as I say, it's all well intentioned. We're all just sort of having a laugh, but some people can't be trusted to have a laugh. So maybe we need to tone it down in uh, in how we're sort of presenting the audience, the event, as quite so sort of booze fueled.
Yeah, wise words. And as I say, I suspect it will be a lot better next time now, because I think some of those excesses will be cut off type thing. The debate continues across various forums. I did have, this is there to see in print or on the internet, if you like, that version of print. People said to me, they wouldn't feel comfortable going to the shootout on their own. And funny enough, a couple of people said to me, well, should the objective be that anyone can go to any event on their own if they fancy it? Yes, absolutely. I mean, like, well, that's a crazy question. Of course, everyone should be safe and comfortable going to any snooker event. It doesn't matter if it's rowdy, but if it's rowdiness when it's a group of lads and it's getting that weird, sort of slightly threatening thing, that's not. And I think things can be done to reshape that. Actually, um, may take a couple of additions to get there, but I think with a little bit of nuance, a little bit of, as you say, a lighter touch with the way it's presented. I can't remember what I remember early in my career, and I was really grateful to them because I remember going back, laying things on far too thickly in my work, and they're like, why are you sort of doing that? Why don't you let the event speak, or let the pictures or the words speak for themselves? And I think that's what the shootout needs. I think a little bit. Let the event speak for itself. It doesn't need to be. And if I want a great big night out, someone said, "Oh, it's bonkers here. It's carnage. It's that was sort of that's let it let it develop more naturally. I think really that's kind of one of the things I would say. But Phil, let's move on, shall we, and talk
The
about.
only other thing I wanted to say about that, which point I forgot to make, was just in terms of it being sort of a minority, and it may have been a fair few people this time, but yeah, this is probably something that will come up during the Masters next month, which is nowhere near that level of rowdiness. But I'm sure it comes up every year because there's a bit more rowdiness at the Masters than most tournaments,
Yeah.
and there's always one or two idiots who take it too far. And there's always a conversation, it's like, oh, is the Masters gone a bit too far now? Do we need to sort
Mm.
of rein it in? But it is always just one or two clowns who need throwing out, and otherwise it's an absolute sensational atmosphere. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's that is the only other tournament that ever seems to happen. But just we need to sort of make sure we do realise it is just a few idiots, rather than the whole tournament needs eradicating or whatever.
Well, I don't think anyone's suggesting the tournament needs eradicating. I did see that kind of talk on social media. I think people are saying that it could be reshaped for sure and represented. But no, I take your point. Yeah, I mean, my minority is an interesting one because it is a minority, but I always feel that like it's a little bit like when England football fans sort of trash a town or city and they say, "Oh, well, it's only a minority." Well, I mean, that's no consolation to the people there, but I know what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. Right, on to the Scottish Open then. Phil, we had news of Ronnie O'Sullivan pulling out on day one of the tournament. I mean, obviously now it's a regular occurrence. I think I'd be lying if I said it bothered me unduly, I have to say, but I can see why the most successful player ever, as he comes up to 50 now, will want to pick and choose when he plays. But it obviously comes late, the news, for a lot of events. And we do get quite a few listeners, and we've been aware of it for quite a while now, that they will get in touch about it. I spoke to WST over the last couple of days, and this is what they have said to me. At the start of the season, players tick a box now to enter everything. Now, the main reason for that, I think, is where that coming in is because players in the past have sometimes forgotten to enter an event. It happened with Hendry, as I recall. I think it might have happened with Neil Robertson as well. So they have this system where they enter everything, and they obviously have the option to withdraw from anything. Now, WST say they respect players' welfare and any medical reasons, which is absolutely correct. They do encourage players to give as much notice as possible when they pull out of events, especially when players can be replaced in the draw. That's obviously not applicable at this week's Scottish Open or any of the home nations events because you can't replace anyone. In this, because players have come through qualifying. Now, I think this is the crucial bit of information they told me is that they say as soon as WST hears that a player has withdrawn, the news is relayed almost immediately. It's on the website within minutes. So sometimes, I'll have fans asking me on occasion, or more often, I'll see it on forums. Oh, there's a delay in being told. And actually, it reminds me a little bit of racing. I'm not going to go as far as saying conspiracy theory, but it's almost along those lines. Oh, we're not being told by trainers; they're not telling us. Well, actually, they are. 99% of the time, they are, in my opinion, relaying the information in a responsible manner. And I think that's the case here. That's what I'm told. I have no reason to doubt that. So no suggestion of a delay. As soon as the news is given, it's relayed. I did ask whether Ronnie's pulled out of the Scottish Open for medical reasons. Um, the answer came back that that information falls under confidentiality agreements. And I also asked if there's a cut-off point time-wise where players will be fined if they pull out. And again, I'm told that falls under the confidentiality of player contracts. I mean, it comes into this sort of endless sort of thing we have where some things bother some people and some things bother others. I'm not really too bothered about Ronnie pulling out. Ideally, yes, it wouldn't be so late. WST also do say to me that, and I agree with this, they're in such a strong position now that they feel they can withstand withdrawals even late, and even if it's Ronnie. You know, there are so many good players on tour now. Ticket sales and TV viewing figures are not greatly affected, I'm told, and I see myself to a large extent by players pulling out. So, you know, in the case of Ronnie, we like it to be a bit more like Judd Trump, who gave, for example, very good notice of not playing in this. That's the ideal scenario. It's obviously not the case for one reason or another, but you know, Ronnie has been suffering, isn't he? He's had tennis elbow, of course, is one of the issues he's had lately, and he's also, you know, as we know, had documented issues over the years. So we don't know why he's pulled out, but it's his prerogative. You know, he's the greatest player in the history of the game. You know, and the debate will go on, and I've heard this on other platforms. Is Ronnie playing enough? I know you've written a piece, haven't you, just focusing on his playing side, saying that people are writing him off too soon, but he's ultimately not really played a lot this season. So that's up to him. I expect we'll see him soon, quite possibly next week, eh? But I'm grateful to WST for that response. And what's your view on Ronnie pulling out? It's come late again, eh?
It has, yeah. I mean, it is annoying for not for sort of us who are really clued up and fully expect it to happen. And the people I feel sorry for, who people in Edinburgh who will have seen him advertised as playing and thought, "Oh, I'll go and see Ronnie O'Sullivan," who maybe don't follow snooker as closely as we do and don't know he's very likely to pull out of this. Um, and then they've taken the day off work or whatever. They've got prepared to go, and then he pulls out last minute. It's those people that I feel bad for, because that's really annoying, and it'll probably put them off going to see snooker again if that's the only time they were going to see snooker in the first place. And it's a pain in the neck. Obviously, they'll go and watch. If they go anyway, they'll have seen perfectly good matches, so maybe that was a good thing. But yeah, it's annoying for the people who buy the tickets. I remember it was Liam Graham actually last year who was meant to play Ronnie in this tournament, and he said a load of his family had got their time off work to come and see him, and then Ronnie pulled out late notice, and he was really annoyed about it. But of course, it's a small number of people in the grand scheme of things, but it's annoying for those guys, especially when you get the impression he not really had any intention of playing. But he said himself, I was trying to dig out the quotes and I couldn't find them actually, but he did a round of interviews. He must have been promoting a book or something, when he was on Chris Evans, and he said he's in the draw and he waits the day before to see if he fancies going to play, and then he plays or not. Which that makes sense on a completely sort of how he wants to run his career. You don't want to. I suppose you wouldn't want to force him to withdraw early on the off chance he does want to play, because then it's a good thing he goes and plays. So, um, yeah, but yeah, as you say, sort of conspiracy theory wise, I think it is what it says. He does leave it till late and pull out. As he said himself, that's what he does. And if there was any sort of suggestion about WST knowing he pulled out, leaving him in the draw, I think Ronnie O'Sullivan would out them pretty quickly if they were pulling any shenanigans like that. He's not one to play ball against his will with World Snooker. So yeah, no, it is what it is. It's how it seems. And yeah, it is up to Ronnie. But I think just for the sort of paying public, it'd be nicer if he gave him a bit more notice.
Yeah, there will definitely be people that I know people in my own life that said even that know the game, they say, oh, maybe this time they'll try and make plans to see Bonnie if he even on television. But I think most of us probably now know that most of the time. But I thought, no, Ronnie, he will just play in one of them soon, won't he? Because that'll be the curveball. He'll just turn up and play in one unexpectedly.
Well, Champion of Champions, I think a lot of people didn't expect him to play in that. I know I spoke to at least one player the week before that, and they were like, "Oh, I don't know who they're gonna get to replace Ronnie in the draw." And I said, "Well, he's still in the draw." And for some reason, I did think he was going to play that, just being a matchroom tournament and before the UK. But yeah, there was every chance he didn't play that because he didn't play it the year before, did he? But so yeah, who knows? But yeah, he sort of see. You never know when he seems predictable. He will throw something unpredictable in there.
Indeed, yeah. So that was the news sort of off the table, if you like. Well, the news on the table early on was that Gary Wilson was knocked out in the opening morning. I noticed a few critics, Phil, have you saw playing of him playing in the Monday 10 a.m. slot. Riyad Evans quite outspoken on social media about it, but that's when he was. It's not the first time. We've had this come up quite a lot, actually. And he lost on that Monday morning 4-2 to Long Zhihang. Um, on that first day, then, John Higgins was among the players to claim victories. He beat Ian Burns with 4 half centuries, while Mark Allen and Stuart Bingham also had wins. We're up to day two now. This is on Tuesday. Mark Selby, Sean Murphy, Kyron Wilson, and Neil Robertson among the players to have wins. There was a dramatic old match. Luca Bassel, Julian Leclerc. Leclerc was 3-2 up with a break of 1-2-4. Bassel came back to win it with breaks of 68 and 79. There's more highlights, of course. You might have your own, Phil, and a whole list of them, of course, matches on snooker.org and WST. These are some highlights I picked out. Today, day three, Wednesday, Phil, as we record this on this Wednesday night. Well, some crackers, really. I mean, Ding Junhui beat Jackson Page 4-2, breaks of 98, 69 and 87 from Ding. Well done to Stephen Maguire. He beat Kyron Wilson 4-2. World champion sent Pack in there. Breaks of 79, 67, 71 and 128 from Maguire. You mentioned off air, so I'd love to hear more from you. I didn't see it. Luca Bassel looking better than he has for some time, beating Zhao Yulong 4-1. Breaks of 91, but you just see it from the scoring. Breaks of 91, 103 and 57 from Luca. Well, the shootout winner, Tom Ford, gaining instant confidence. He's still going, Phil. He's beaten Neil Robertson today, 4-1. And Mark Allen through as well. In a very high scoring match against Ryan Day, actually. Day made a 1-2-2 in the frame he won. Well, Mark really had his scoring boots on. 3 centuries, breaks of 104, 127, 78, and 103 from Allen. We had a few of those lately, haven't we? Sean Murphy had one recently where it's like you almost can't play better in a best of 7-8.
Yeah, that is the way sometimes. Yeah, it's hard to believe people lose a match sometimes. They play perfectly well, but it does happen. But yeah, no, there was some strong performances. Yeah, I did watch Luca, and he did look really good. I know he only just scraped past his compatriot Julien Leclerc, but and there was also that odd story about how he'd forgotten the code to get into his cue case. I mean, he's sort of becoming this sort of almost sort of slapstick character at tournaments, sort of jetting in and out of events, like, oh, I can't get my cue case. It's all very tough. But he did get in. He got through that game. And then, yeah, I did think he looked very good against Joey Long. Certainly the best I've seen him for a while. It was encouraging. And even this run, it won't take him much to sort of end this. Will he drop off tour? Thought. He may well have done it with this run for the last 16 here. At least he may go further. But he's got Ding Junhui next, which is a big old game. And I'd look at their head-to-head, actually. I mean, this will have happened by the time a lot of people listen to it. But 8-0 to Ding on that head-to-head
Oh,
in all
yeah.
competitions, which I found interesting. You know, you might predict Ding to be ahead, but I didn't expect 8-0. But yeah, encouraging signs for Luca, though, and very encouraging for Maguire. I mean, it's only 2 or 3 weeks since he got battered 6-0 by Kyron at the UK and said he couldn't believe how badly he played. It was the worst performance he's ever put in, worst effect. And then he looked very good. Um, Watched a little bit of Lasowski beat Si Jiaoui 4-0. I mean, I thought I nearly didn't tweet. I nearly put ring the is it going to be Jack's week bell? It always seems to happen. He puts in some sparkling performances early on in events. We'll see how it goes, but he did look very good there because that looked like a tough one to call. And he battered C there, very impressive. And Wu again, I'll just give him a shout. He beat Ishpreet Singh Chadha, who I like as well, good player. But Wu with breaks of 74, 135, 56, and 51. He's pretty reliable at the minute. you're going deep. So very impressive. But yeah, as I say, people will be listening to this, and this will be old news. So we're in the middle of the event here. Plenty more to come.
Yeah, loads more to come. Yeah, Ding and Luca, I was thinking that rings a bell. And I thought, did I just see them playing Brentwood? And I thought, did I maybe the one just gone? It's Brentwood last year. Time goes so quickly. And I remember it well now because both matches, they played at the British, I think maybe a week or two before, and it was 4-3 Ding. And the match I saw in Brentwood was sort of half ridiculous that Luca didn't win it, actually. He was really sort of won the first two frames. I thought, oh, he really looks the part here. But then just sort of fell away a bit, and Ding got the victory. And that was not long after, of course, after Luca won the world title. But yeah, it's funny. Luca's a bit like that, isn't he? He's now a world champion with really bad career records against some players. You know, totally unbecoming of a world champion in a way. But that's the nature of his career. He wouldn't swap it for the world, Phil. He's had the greatest triumph of all. But he wants some wins, of course, as we know. Um, you know, for his ranking, but he's getting a few slowly but surely. He's still speaking a confident game. He's still sort of saying, well, what are you lot worried about type thing. That's kind of the little bit of the very much the Luca way, isn't it? But anyway, so I've not seen an immense amount. Seems like nice crowds, certainly congregating around the TV table. I mean, you expect it for John Higgins. I saw that nice crowd in for that, and I think he took a wrong turning. I saw a McManus interview. He arrived rather later than he wanted. Also, some really nice words from John about the Masters match, which we just can't wait for already. Higgins and O'Sullivan. He was saying that he watched the draw with his family and said, "I fancy might get Ronnie here," and he did. So that was a nice little thing. But yeah, it seems to be going well. A city I know very well in life, not a venue I know well. But yeah, I wonder if one of the home. It's one of those classic ones where you think, well, this is a chance here. You know, no Judd, no Ronnie. You know, all these sort of. But there's still, it's like WSC was saying to me, and they're right. There's so many star names. I think you know, it's a succession of greats. You still got to get past to win it, eh?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Higgins just now, this is sort of video printer stuff. He's just lost 4-3 to Barry Hawkins.
Has he?
Yeah. I mean, that
Oh,
shows he looked good in that first game. And you think, oh, as you say, there's some big names missing, home tournament. And then you get Barry Hawkins second round. He's banging form. Like, that's how difficult it is. And Lisowski, people get excited when he's won his first two games 4-0. Third round, he's got Mark Allen. So it's so hard.
mm.
And that's the nature of it. If this feels like one of those tournaments that we might see a surprise finalist, maybe we will, but it's just tough going. But yeah, like you said, I'd noticed the crowds. It's not absolutely rammed full, but from the very early stages, did look very good. That I did watch some of that Gary Wilson match on that first morning, and I did think it was very sort of. I didn't see Rianne's complaints, but I imagine it's along these lines that it was very sort of low key, not much fanfare at all for a defending champion to come in. It was it's on Discovery Plus, but it's sort of before the program even starts properly. It's sort of under the radar. And Gary's been struggling for results really at the minute, so another bad one for him. But yeah, no, crowds have looked good in everything I've seen. Oh, and a shout out for Dean Young, he just gone out today, but great win in his first game against Pang Junzhu. He would have been heavy underdog there, even though he's in front of his home crowd because I was pleased to see that because I bumped into him actually in Victoria's Academy when I went to interview Ming a few weeks ago. And he just beat Tep Chaya in qualifying, which was a great win for him there. And he was just so excited to be playing in front of his home crowd. So to get a win there and a really good win against Pang's great player. Yeah, I was really delighted for him. So another player like we were talking about Liam earlier. Doesn't get a lot of glory on tour, playing a lot of sort of low key games in front of no one, and doesn't get loads of wins. So to get a good one in front of a partisan crowd, it's just nice to see for these guys.
No, definitely. No, glad you brought that up and talked about it. And yeah, the Gary Wilson thing again. I suppose it comes down to the old thing about TV, and they want the biggest names and the sort of star attractions because the 10 a.m. Monday thing only happens to the so-called lesser names. Gary Wilson's a big name in this sport for those of us in it, but probably not to the wider public. So you wouldn't have a Selby, I don't think, on that in that slot, or Trump for sure. But anyway, that's the way it goes. We know all about that. Good scoring from Hawkins. Having a look now, 4 half centuries: 51, 69, 99, and 87. So yeah, he got the job done with an 87 in the final frame. So it's a good match for this stage of a home nation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hawkins and Higgins. My goodness. Well, Phil, maybe we should have another break. But before we do that, there's another Saudi Invitational next week, isn't there? We know the draw for that. All the big hitters will be there, of course. And you've got some more details for us.
Yeah, it's coming up. It's coming around soon, isn't it? This is the 167, the Riyadh season snooker championship, I think it's called. So it's the world's top 10. So Ding Junhui and Zhang Anda being the bottom half of that, bottom two in that 10, have got wild cards, local wild cards, which haven't been announced yet. Um, and then we've got, let's say we can assume Ding and Zhang come through that. Ding v Murphy, Zhang v Brissell. Then we've got Selby against Allen, Judd against Mark Williams. I'm looking at this on the wrong thing because I've made the mistake of going on World Snooker Tour rather than snooker.org, which is just silly. Ronnie against Murphy, or the winner of the previous match. Selby against Allen, Judd against Williams, and then Kyron against Brissell or Zhang or the wild card. So, it's the top 10 players in the world, so it's all good stuff. But yeah, obviously, Mark Selby against Mark Allen and Judd Trump against Mark Williams in the first round of any event is lovely stuff.
Yeah, they're brilliant matches. Of course they are. And yeah, they'll offer great entertainment. John and Williams, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a good. I don't like to say the word gravitas very often. You know that, but occasionally I will chuck it in there. I saw someone say that. I can't think of the life of me who it was now. But they're right. There is a real gravitas about Judd Trump, Mark Williams. I think it's one of those we see quite a lot. We don't see some other matchups much for just bizarre, no reason, just the randomness of. There are two or three of those biggest hitters in the game that haven't played each other much, just bizarrely, or relative terms. But John and Williams have had some absolute belters, absolute belters. I mean, that world semi was a marvelous match, unforgettable match. Two or three big finals they've had. Played at the last tour, didn't they? When Mark had a thumping win, so it seems to come around an awful lot, that one. And that's true when you build up history, and there's the age gap between them. They're obviously both superstars of the game. They obviously have this great respect. It really works as a matchup, I think. Well, that's obviously a match that people will look forward to. And we should say another news line here, Phil. A new content platform called WST Play will launch next month on January the 7th, actually, giving fans around the world the chance to watch the entire season either live or on demand. WST Play will replace the service currently available on Matchroom Live. Fans in territories where snooker is not otherwise broadcast will be able to watch the action live. Those in territories covered by existing broadcast agreements will be able to watch all available matches back 30 days after broadcast, with over 250 matches already available from this 2024-25 season. WST Play will also feature a range of new and exclusive content, such as rare archive footage, including every Ronnie O'Sullivan Triple Crown final victory, over 80 hours of the greatest at his best. There will also be additional benefits for members, including exclusive ticket priority for UK events, hospitality discounts, and free tickets to qualifiers. And there's a couple of exceptions, isn't there? Champion of Champions and Championship League will be different. Those events, as I remember reading earlier, will be on YouTube. So I think Matchroom Live is going to be more sort of pull now from a couple of lines that I've seen out there. But yeah, WS Play, new chance to see the action. I guess for those of us in the UK, it won't be relevant so much live-wise because we see stuff live anyway, so we'll have a 30-day option. But I've had a couple of people actually say, I think McManus would be one of them, it is great, and Discovery is very good for this, when you can go back to any match you want. That's a bit of a priceless option, that. So this maybe can have that kind of thing. That will be a good resource, eh?
Yeah, definitely. I use that with Discovery a lot because it's usually when there's been like quite a good pre-match interview or post-match interview that I remember. And then I go back, I can sort of remember what it was and dig them out, and then you can get the quotes off it later because they've got low. It goes a long way back. It's great. Um, so yeah, having all this archive footage and not just the game. I don't know if this new one will love it, but all the stuff surrounding the game is superb. But yeah, no, sounds good because Matchroom Live doesn't always get the best reviews. I seem to only really use it when the Championship League's on. I think I sort of sign up for a month and cancel it pretty regularly around the Championship League. Um, so I might still have to do that. But yeah, if they're obviously trying to do something new, more comprehensive, that probably is a bit more reliable because it just get a bit just get from abroad. Our listeners abroad often say that it's not the best Matchroom Live. So hopefully this is a big improvement. Sounds ambitious and going down the right route, which is what we like to hear.
Should we do some correspondence?
Hmm.
Let's do it. And we should say you are listening here to Talking Snooker with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. We don't want to do a monster episode, do we, Phil? We've done about an hour, so maybe we'll aim for about 20, 30 more minutes all in. Let's see how we get on, sir. Let's start with Connor Cunningham. And this is unfortunately a sad email from Connor. We are grateful for you getting in touch. He says, "Hi, Nick and Phil. I'm a member of a snooker club in Paiporta, Valencia. This was one of the most badly affected towns in the recent devastating Spanish floods. And sadly, the snooker club was not spared. It was also completely destroyed in the floods, leaving us with no place to play or train. Our three tables, the associated accessories, and over 50 cases and cues were damaged, with the flood water and mud leaving a trail of destruction. It is a club with around 50 members and is the only private snooker club in Valencia. We have members playing in the Spanish National League and one that qualified for the European Tour card in Manchester in November 2024. We have also hosted a few national snooker championships and other events. We have set up a GoFundMe page so that we can begin to re-establish the club in a different area and location of the city. All members are keen to get back to some sort of normality and to get back to playing the game that we all love. We will be very grateful if you could share the below link and information on the podcast. Every donation, no matter how small, is very much appreciated. Many thanks, Connor." And Connor, alongside that, sent us pictures of the damage, and we put a couple up on our Twitter feed. Obviously, any picture of devastation caused by something terrible like that flooding is bad, but it strikes us as snooker people, obviously, to see tables completely destroyed like that, all the cues destroyed. It really is sad to see. So the link to the GoFundMe page that Connor sends us here is on our Talking Snooker Twitter feed. And I know we both pointed to it, didn't we, Phil, also on our Twitter feeds. Well, you can find out more details by looking up Club de Billar, that's Billar, Valencia Snooker. I know there's more details on their Instagram page. So it's Club de Billar, Valencia Snooker on Google or the search engine of your choice. We wish you luck, of course, with the rebuilding of the snooker club there, because you obviously lost the ability to play there due to those dreadful floods. So we wish you all the best and thank you for letting us know. And let's hope they raise some funds for that. I noticed they're up to about 1,000, so it's a start. Now after about 40 or 50,000, but it's obviously a cause that will be close to people's hearts if they love the game. Particularly those that run clubs. We've had a few messages from people that are involved with snooker clubs saying how heartbreaking they found them to see. So we just wish, for a good outcome there and maybe a chance to rebuild the club because those pictures were so sad.
They really were, yeah. I mean, obviously, sort of snooker in the grand scheme of sort of devastating floods seems small, but to the snooker community, who we're speaking to right now, seeing damage to snooker tables, is heartbreaking. Just seeing a snooker table, I still find it sort of reverential sort of thing. It's a piece of work, piece of art. So yeah, to see them in the state they were was very, very sad. So we wish those guys all the best in their fundraising, and hopefully they'll be back on their feet as soon as possible. But we move on now. Here's Adam Fisher, who this one sort of aimed at me. Hi, chaps. I'm sure Phil has watched Mr. McMahon on Netflix. This is a bloody left turn from the floods in Valencia. As a WWF wrestling fan, the series is a compelling watch. Might be a left field question, but is there anything WST can learn from sports entertainment, such as WWF? P.S. I refuse to call it WWE. All the best, Adam. Well, this put me in mind of an interview I did with Barry Hearn a few years ago. This was in lockdown. I think this was 2020, and I sort of felt that he'd taken inspiration from Vince McMahon and Dana White from the UFC And I asked him about that. So um, this was his quotes that he gave to me at the time for Metro. I think certainly WWE has influenced me. I invented Fishermania the day after a WrestleMania. That's why it is called Fishermania. I thought mania is such a good word. A lot of my walk-ons that we brought to boxing early doors and subsequently to the darts were inspired by WWE. Not so much the UFC, that inspires more a digital, younger market through commercialization. From a show projection, the leader was WWE. It was families having a good time, and they were promoting something that wasn't even real. So it was brilliant. It was genius. They got everyone so involved, and I'm a big fan of personality building in your stars, which is part of their vision, and also the crowd being part of the show, which follows their vision. Um, and on his sort of role, inspired by the McMahon role. He says WWE is a major in my life because sports promoters generally are just doing it for the money. They forget that they are there to be entertainers themselves. Vince McMahon, Dana White, Eddie Hearn. Those names roll off your tongue as people you've heard of. Barry Hearn to an extent to an older audience. Today they're almost bigger stars than the stars they represent. That's what we're there for. We're playing the same game that everyone else plays, just trying to be the best. So that was quite interesting insight from Barry there, not just about snooker, but his other businesses. And sounds like he was quite heavily influenced by the world of professional wrestling. Obviously, there's some terrible news stories recently about Vince McMahon, so hopefully not that side of it, but the show side of it. And you can see, certainly not so much in the snooker, but the way he presents the shows, you can see what he's got from that. And yeah, the interesting bit for me and what Adam asked about what World Snooker could learn is the personality building that he mentions there in the snooker players, building up their own brands, social medias, getting themselves out there outside of tournaments. You know, you hear a lot of players complaining about they're not being promoted properly by World Snooker. You know, it's in people's own hands to promote themselves now, as well, if not better than organizations can do it. Sort your own podcast, YouTube channels, and what you can do whatever you want, and you can go really far. So, um, yeah, I suppose that is the side that Barry mentioned himself there, the personality building that could be done better in snooker. But I think snooker players themselves could take hold of it as well.
Yeah, really wise words there all round. I'm also not surprised that Barry likes the entertainment side. That's very much how he sells tarts. You know, they're big ones, aren't they? Matchroom generally for the whole package, the whole day, the whole night. What's outside? What's available? What entertainment is here? What's the announcements like? It's all linked to that. And I don't know a great deal about WWE really, apart from I know it's a very big deal. But I do know about NFL, and that's a proper sport meeting entertainment. I mean, there was a game on Monday that wasn't actually a very good game. They can change NFL games. They call it flex in America. They can switch them out and put them on a different channel and make other games prime time, which they probably would have done with this, but they didn't because they had a simulcast of The Simpsons at the same time, with Homer basically playing for the Cowboys and Bart playing for the Bears. And Lisa was operating Skycam, and everyone was involved in different ways. And I mean, if that's not the ultimate sport meets entertainment, I don't know what is. But yeah, no, thank you for that question, Adam, and thank you, for that answer, Phil. They're very different businesses, snooker and WWE, but there's always a chance to learn from other sports, of course. And this is next, Graham Walsh. Hi, Nick and Phil. I'm just winding down from a few good days at the snooker. First at the Champion of Champions in Bolton, and then the UK Championship in York. Two fantastic tournaments with top-class snooker. I attended the first tournament with my mother. She's still sprightly at 82, loves her snooker, but rarely gets to see it live. She made a few comments about improving the experience for her and probably others new to the live game. Above the tables are a couple of screens, one showing the TV stream and the other the match score. These are typically regular sized TVs and hard to see from a distance. I realise that you're not there to watch a screen, but if they are there, make them bigger. The ones in York, for me at least, were partly obscured by the TV lighting. The scoring screen should have larger numbers and more useful and interesting information for the paying audience. One easy improvement is to highlight when snookers are acquired. It's difficult to know this for those in the arena who are either arithmetically challenged or used to TV snooker. Next, the referees. They're really difficult to hear. Can they not be mic'd up? At least just enough for the crowd to hear. If this is too much, then show on the screens when decisions have been made. Incidents such as fouls, touching balls, warnings can be missed by the crowd. People in the arena, especially those new to live snooker, can be completely unaware of what's going on. Live snooker is great, but it can cost a pretty penny. An all-day ticket for next year's UK is well over £100. Yet sometimes it seems those paying to watch get a second-class experience, still eavesdropping on a gentleman's club rather than watching an elite sporting event. And that's Graham. What a line to finish on. Finish on a killer line there. Leave them wanting more for next time there, Graham. I like that. Well, that's a perfect email, by the way, in terms of what we asked for from tournaments. It's proper, you agreeing with that. Proper observation. That's really good stuff. So thank you for Graham. Thank you to you, Graham, for that. And what I would say in general terms is you can't beat going to live sport, which is why many of us have done it all our lives. But you nearly always know more from telly. I mean, look at the thing with VAR, and that they should do better with VAR in football. People in the stadiums, I don't know what's going on. We do at home. We're told everything at the stadium. They're left in the dark, and I've seen from both sides of that. I'm sure many of us have. So it's always difficult to some extent. I take the point about the screens. Actually, they are kind of small. Maybe they could just be bigger. I wouldn't imagine that would be a big problem. I mean, money, I guess, would be a factor, but a little bit bigger. I don't think tellies are that expensive now, are they? I'm not sure. I mean, I don't think that would be a particularly big deal. As for referees, could that be disturbing? I'm not sure about that. It could be. I don't know. I mean, they don't speak for long, do they? Especially when they announce the scores, 7, 14, 15. They don't, maybe it could be a bit louder. Of course, what I would say is, Phil, shameless plug time, snooker on the radio can work. But that doesn't always happen, of course, at all tournaments, to be serious. I don't think with the headsets, is it? It's not always available. But if you want regular audio interviews and commentary, look up Radio Snooker with Nick Metcalf. I'll be delighted to have you for company. But in terms of the live experience, we are grateful for you making those points. And yeah, I get the bigger screen thing. Yeah, snooker is interesting, isn't it? Because when you're watching on telly, you get the feeling, oh, everyone's realised, but not everyone does. And even I have watched snooker all my life. Even though if I think about it logically, I know it's 6 reds is 75 left and 5 reds is 67. I still have to think about it at times. I still have to do that thing. Oh, it's 5 reds, so it's 35, 43, and I'm doing it during it. So it's not always easy to grasp, especially when you're in the midst of watching an exciting match. So yeah, I get the points there that they're made. Bigger screen stuck out as me as something that maybe could be done.
Yeah, I think those things will change completely on depending what arena you've been in. I've sat in some and it's clear to see, others not, depending on your seats. There's not sort of a that's the problem with snooking. Sort of you're moving around to different arenas that are used for different things. Nowhere is built as a snooker arena. It's not like a football stadium, which is designed where everyone can see everything. So it is tricky. And not making excuses. You should be able to see. I completely agree with your point. You're the one paying for the ticket to the experience, and it shouldn't just be the fact that you're seeing the things with your own eyes. You should get all these things that people sat on the sofa at home get to see. So yeah, as much as possible, I would love to see that improved. What you explained before, Nick, I feel like when I go to the cricket, and I love a day at the cricket. But it's more for the big day out and sort of the atmosphere. You can't see what's going on half the time at all. you know, you'd be very lucky. You've got to be sat in really the ideal seats to have any idea if something's taken an edge or whether it's LBW or not. You can barely see the ball at all most of the time. So it is funny with live sport. You're not necessarily paying for the best view in the house, but you would like to know what's going on as much as possible. And especially with a sport like snooker, at the pace it is, you would hope people should be able to see the scores and hear the referees. I suppose when it's mic'd up with those like multi-table events, it couldn't be too loud. Imagine if someone's playing on the next table and then there's a big mic mic'd up score announcement, it could put you off if someone's on the shot. Maybe that's an issue. Not sure, but yeah, of course, we want the people who've made the effort, paid the money, bothered to go to the event to have the best experience possible, of course.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, we're grateful to you for making those points, Graham. I hope that doesn't sound patronising. That's exactly the kind of email we're looking for. When we say you at tournaments, this is the kind of precise info we love hearing, and we hope you and your mother had a good time and you get to another tournament soon enough. And yeah, you're right about cricket. And even in that example, you say if you did see it live, you think, oh, that you got a good chance to see when it's LBW or it got on edge. You're not then seeing the replays, are you? You're not seeing it go upstairs and then show every little bit. You're just waiting at the ground, I think. In fact, no, the grounds might show it big screens, actually. The grounds might show that on big screens, actually, at test matches. Now I think
Sometimes they
about
do,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, now I think about it. But it's still not, yeah, it's not like there was a couple, I remember one very, very big sports writer, and speaking to them at Cheltenham a few years ago, and I was saying, "Are you missing it all?" He's like, "No, I see everything on telly. It's great." And it's only one person, but I thought, yeah, I know what you mean. I don't agree with that, but I can see why after all these years of covering sport, you love watching on telly where you can see everything. But anyway, I think it might be James Cannon next for you, sir.
James Cannon, hello, Nick and Phil. Congratulations on another birthday. Thank you very much. I've listened almost from the very beginning, and this is an outstanding podcast. You've got brilliant chemistry together, and I appreciate every single episode. I know you'll be too humble to say this, so I'll say it. I think you've both inspired other podcasts to start up. The BBC podcast, Sean Murphy's podcast, and even the WST getting Hendry on theirs. But you've still got that speaking with the fans, totally authentic quality that sets you apart. I don't like it when you say stuff like, we're good for one more season in Sheffield. I want you to go on for years. All the best from sunny Bristol, James. I should have read that first. I thought it was a question coming. It was just lovely, lovely praise. But thank you very much, James. That was very kind of you.
Yeah, we never leave that out. Of course, we're into our fifth year now, and yeah, there's a bit of life left in the podcast yet, Phil. Maybe quite a lot. Who knows? Brian Campbell next, dear Nick and Phil, friend of the podcast. Um, Actually, we can't really give him friend if we didn't give Rob Francis friend. I didn't think that through. Virtually friend. But if we see Brian at the bar, we're not going to say, actually, mate, you're not quite, you're only on strong acquaintance, terms. We're not going to have a
Very
chat.
fine line, isn't it?
It's a very fine line. And what a great guy Brian is, though. Big, big fan. He's such a nice character. And he often gives me some nice little tidbits about sport when we meet up. And he's got some views here. I don't mind some match play snooker. It's all part and parcel of the sport. I'm not a fan of when Mark Allen slows things right down, though. Mark has a perfect right to play within the rules in any way he thinks can maximise his chances of winning. Deliberate slow play from a player who in full flow is a delight to watch is dreadfully dull to watch, in my opinion. Credit to Sean Murphy for telling it like it is, while Steve Davis tiptoed around the subject, which is disappointing for someone who is being paid to give his opinion. I remember Mark pulling the same stunt a couple of years ago in a tournament against Jack Lisowski, a match which looked mouth-watering on paper, ended up being less than entertaining. I don't think this kind of thing helps attract new viewers to the sport. In other news, I've been really enjoying Nick's Radio Snooker. These podcast snooker vignettes are a little treat whenever they appear on my feed. Keep up the great work. Kind regards, Brian. Thank you for that, Brian. Much appreciated. Very kind. I think we covered the Mark Allen situation, didn't we, really, in our last episode? And we both sort of concluded that it wasn't a tactic, really. He may have, I'm sure he was thinking, I'll be more deliberate tonight because I'm struggling. I want to do the best I can, and I'm being a bit flippant, but the whole idea that he's like, oh, I'll tell you what, I'm not playing well, so I'll just let Barry have this, that's not going to happen. I'll play sort of slapdash shots, or I won't give everything attention. I mean, listen, he's scoring well today, so the vagaries of form in this sport come and go, but I don't think he was his very best at the UK, was he? And it was a difficult night, really. And I know I said last time it depends on where you are. I find the tipping point fascinating because many people wrote to me and us saying, no, they still found it compelling. They don't care what cynics say or what some people in the game or that love the game say they still love that match. So everyone's got different views on it. There were times when I think it might have flipped to the other side, if I'm really honest. Again, everyone's got different views on that. But I know that Sean Murphy did. I mean, Sean's not one to back away from views, and that's one of the qualities of Sean, frankly, on television and on any kind of media. Yeah, I mean, on Steve, he is obviously an unbelievable snooker character, and I agree with those that say he's snooker's greatest ever ambassador. I think he probably is, but I do think at times on telly he's just a bit too nice, Steve. He doesn't really want to upset anybody. I've noticed this a few times. The classic one that comes to mind was when Ali Carter told the referee he'd hit a ball at the Masters a few years ago and he hadn't, and the decision was changed. John Virgo was absolutely incandescent, whereas Steve just constantly tried to play it down as, oh, Ali wouldn't do anything wrong. We're not saying he would. We're not saying it's deliberate from Ali, but you've got to take a view on this, surely, Steve. But he often just doesn't, and that's just the way he is. He has his qualities. Obviously, Steve Davis, he calls a match as well as anyone could ever imagine, and the shots because he's one of the greatest players. But if you want a view on a sort of controversial issue, I don't think you go to Steve. Really, that's the way I would say it. There we are. Metcalf outspoken against the Phil. Over to you.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think on the Mark Allen point, what I've seen of him today, I watched a bit of that game against Ryan Day, and he's sped up a lot. Um, I, I'm never 100%. I wouldn't take the average shot time that appears on the World Snooker site to court with me as hard, fast evidence. I always trust it, but it did seem like he was playing quicker, and his average shot time against Day, it says online at 18.3 seconds, and he won that game 4-2 with breaks of 104, 127, 78, and 103. So if he has decided to say like sod this slow played malarkey, I'm just going to play my natural game. Hopefully, it is working for him, and hopefully he'll stick to that because it is a tough watch. And I don't think it's tactical what he's done. Maybe has been occasion in the past. You mentioned that Lasowski game. Maybe he would do that at Lasowski. I don't think he was doing to that Hawkins. I think he was just struggling for form, struggling for confidence, and that's how it came out. But yeah, it looks more like it this week, more like he's playing as fluently as possible, and it's paying off for him. So good news for viewers and for Mark himself, I'd say. And we'll move on to Gary here. The shootout can be entertaining, but you're right about the crowds, Nick, and thank you for calling it out. It was like a mixture of the worst elements of a stag party and a club 18 to 30 holiday in Ibiza. Is this really what the game wants? I've lost count of the number of times in recent days that I've seen people say they watch the snooker on mute because they can't stand the crowd. They need to sort it out for next year, as it clearly got out of hand. Yeah, well,
Us,
I think we covered that, didn't we? But I think the only thing I would add to that is, there was some stuff said which was like undeniably unacceptable and no one should think was fine. And then there's a lot of other stuff, the majority of it, which is just subjective, what you like from a crowd. There's some banter people find funny, some don't. Some people don't want any shouting out. Um, so then it's really hard to say what's right or wrong because it's subjective. Stuff at the worst end, clear, that's not subjective, that's unacceptable. But it's really hard to tell the rest of it because some people find so much of it annoying. Some people don't mind it, some people like it. Hard to say.
yeah, wise words. And to be fair, I'd take your point on board earlier. People, I said it was fun with the yellow stuff, and you said some people don't like that, and they don't. So that's right. Snooker Lover 147. I can't remember where I saw it now, but I read someone say that this year's shootout was like three drunk England fans getting on a quiet train. Perfect analogy. It's a shame because there were so many good stories and exciting moments. That should be all we're talking about, really. It's obvious that referees and security have to get tougher with people the next time the event is on, as it's just spoiling it now. And that's the message I got through time and time again, that it was spoiling it for people this year. And if they're watching it on mute, it's kind of such a real shame, isn't it? Because they're losing so much of the essence of any snooker broadcast, which is, I mean, I guess they might switch it back on for the interviews, but they're missing the commentary, the presentation, just all a big part of it. So, but there we go. And you've got the last one, Phil, Karen.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Karen here. I went to the UK Championship for the Judd Trump versus Kyron Wilson semi-final, and it was a great afternoon. The atmosphere in the arena was brilliant, and I loved spotting so many snooker personalities. York is such a good city as well. There's so much to see and do, so many nice places to go for food and drink. I've already booked for next year. Love the pod. Keep up the good work. Well, lovely stuff, Karen. Yeah, I mean, you won't hear a bad word said about York here or the UK Championship, I don't think.
You won't, and I'll tell you one thing though. It does remind me of something I saw, which was very interesting. I think it may have been last night, but I saw it today and put it on my social media. Big feature from the BBC on York just being too busy. People saying the Christmas markets now are out of hand. Some residents there, and particularly some disabled people, saying it's now unsafe. They think because it's just got so mad. And I must admit, it was so packed up there. It's funny because I can't believe it's really those markets that have pushed York to this kind of thing and not some of its other glories. But people love those markets. I must admit, I'm not being. When they first came in this country, I was a bit swayed by them, but I'm not so sure now. I remember going to the Birmingham one a few times and really enjoying it, but it's sort of a few fake wooden huts and expensive food and drink, isn't it, Phil? To put my cynical hat on.
No, I'm not. I'm not a big fan, to be fair. I mean, yeah, I love a festive pub. I love going, especially in London. They seem great this time of year. And Christmas trees at the lights are right. They've got mulled wine, mulled cider on, some nice festive ales. I love a pub at this time of year, but a Christmas market just seems like that. But you stood outside and it's cold and horrible, and they're trying to sell you some tank. So I'd happily go to the pub at Christmas, but the market's not so much for me. I've been to the one in Berlin, and that is sensational.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, not so much the British ones for me. But people do love them.
They do, and they bring a tremendous amount of. Well, we mentioned York, but they bring a tremendous amount of trade into Birmingham. They bring a tremendous amount of trade into Manchester. I know the Liverpool one I was in last year, very successful. I did get a bit of food there on the way home. They are in nice places in the city. They can at times give you a bit of a, I guess, a warm, festive feel, but uh, they do go into the overrated category for me a little bit as well. I have to say, and yeah, of course, the European ones have been going forever and a day. I heard from my friend Addy today in Cologne, very nearly a friend of the podcast, and he was sort of saying that, you know, it's, but he was saying it's too much there now. They've gone mad. It's always been great markets, but I remember decades ago seeing pictures of the Cologne, that great cathedral there with the markets. They've done it forever, and Salzburg's always been a great one, hasn't it? And lots of Germany generally, nearly all the big German cities have great ones. It's a newer thing here, and yeah, I mean they're a bit overrated really. But anyway, enough about Christmas markets. We must go. Any other business, Bill? Let's say that well, we've heard World Cup news, haven't we? The men's World Cup going to Saudi Arabia in 2034. I mean, I think I've let my views on the sports relationship with Saudi pretty well known. I certainly remain pretty wary and uncomfortable. And the 2030 tournament, which has been carved up, so it's in Europe and Africa, Spain, Portugal, and Morocco hosting, plus
And
South
South
America,
America somehow as well, yeah.
which is amazing. That they're sort of selling it as a bit of a romantic thing. At one stage, they wanted the whole thing in South America, I think, a long while ago. But for one reason or another, I don't think the capabilities are quite there, particularly on the Uruguay and Paraguay side. So an awful lot of it would be held in Argentina. I don't think they wanted it to be one nation. So Brazil did it recently. So they would say left between a bit of a rock and a hard place. So this compromise is. Initially, I said the first three games, but I noticed the line today is three games. I don't know if it's officially the first three, but I think it might still be the first three. One of them being in Centenario in Montevideo, where they had the first World Cup in 1930, which I was saying earlier on social media I visited back a couple of
I've
decades
been there
ago.
as well, actually, yeah.
It's a hell of a place. It's a bit of a
Mm.
crumbling relic, isn't it? But it's
Yeah,
got it's got that aura, hasn't it? It's got
Mm.
that great sense of history. It gives it a grandeur, I think. So I love that. That will be a special occasion in life.
Yeah.
That part of it. But of course, the cynical part of it is they've done it, so they've left all these parts of the world taken care of, and now because certain confederations can't bid for the next two, it's left it that it has to be in Asia and Oceania. The only bid is Saudi. I mean, it's all very cynical, really, and I think doing two at one is a bit funny. Anyway, we had that with Russia and Qatar, didn't we? So there we are. that's the news. Being well covered in our newspapers here, and I'm sure elsewhere, wherever you are as well. And what else to say? I enjoy going to Arsenal with Manchester United, Phil. What an institution Arsenal is, you know. Might not be your club, but I think going there I really enjoyed. There was a brilliant feature in the press room about TV and radio coverage of Arsenal. I just really enjoyed it. I chatted with so many big hitters from our industries. That was a top night. England won the Test match, didn't they? The second one, the New Zealanders, they won that series. And the World Darts coming up, starting at Alexandra Palace this weekend. I was saying to you before we came on air, hoping to go along one day myself next week. Should be a great tournament. And I'm on board now. Luke Littler effect, I think, going to the last final. I'm really looking forward to it. Loads of big names, loads of stars. And what's more Christmas than that these days, eh?
Yeah, yeah, no, it's going to be good, actually, really good. There's lots of, it's a two-horse race if you listen to anyone, but they're in the same half the draw, so it's they're going to meet in the semis if all goes to plan, and then someone's going to come through the other half, and there's a fair few lurking that side as well. Van Gerwen, Anderson, Smith, they're all on the other side, so yeah, a lot to look forward to. I always think the pre-Christmas bit is a bit of the warm up. It's a bit of the sort of sidling into gear. There might be the odd big name go out, but not many. And then when we come back after stuffing our faces over Christmas, then the serious business starts and really gets spicy. So yeah, no, really looking forward to that. Um, but yeah, the snooker's not even finished yet, is it? We've got obviously the Scottish and then off to Riyadh. And then there's some qualifiers right until I think the 22nd in Sheffield. World Open and the German Masters. So, yeah, plenty more to come.
Indeed. Now, would you give me an early Christmas present and let me just check the live video printer scores? You know how much I enjoy doing it.
I've actually got one on right now.
Is it Lepe Fan Murphy, the decider?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
What's happening in the decider? Or
yeah.
is it
Lays 60 points up.
blimey? Is this you're seeing it on a screen, not just scores? You're seeing the actual table if you
I've got the World Snooker Tour live score feed. So
oh
who
right.
knows if how accurate that is? But
Oh god.
it's saying 60-0.
That's the second time you've had a dig at them today, Phil. Don't think
Oh
I
yeah,
haven't
it's a bit of a
noticed.
mess though, isn't it? Yeah.
Um now well I've got the lays at at the table actually. So that would be a bloody good win, wouldn't it? Turning Murphy over.
Yeah.
Let's see what else is happening then. This is a video printer service. Early on in Selby and Nop on Sandcam, we could go and watch a bit of that. It's 1-1 early in that match. As you mentioned, some results that have come through in the last wee while. That Barry Hawkins won, beating John Higgins. Top win for Barry, of course. Stuart Bingham winning 4-2 against David Lilly. Ruyita, you mentioned, still going strong. What a player he looks. He's beaten Ishpreet Singh Chadha 4-2. Ali Carter getting through, beating Robbie Williams 4-3. All the results, of course, from today's play. We're speaking on Wednesday on snooker.org and WST. And then the event continues live on Eurosport and Discovery. It'll come to its climax on Sunday. And we'll review it next time here on Talking Snooker. We must go, mustn't we? It's been a long episode. Thank you for your company. And all the best, sir. I salute you.
Yeah, just as you mentioned Barry there. This was since we last on air, but I had a nice chat with Barry 2 or 3 days after the UK final. I do like those interviews 2 or 3 days after a big final with players having reflected a bit. So if you haven't seen that on Metro, that's if I say so myself, quite a nice little chat, little tidbits about the after party and him bumping into Ronnie after Ronnie beating him. So nice little behind the scenes stories from the Hawk there. Always a pleasure. And that chat with Liam Graham similarly was a couple of days after the final. So if you've not read them, give them a look. I'll be very appreciative. But yeah, thank you for listening. Pleasure as always to be here and speak to you soon.
I like that Barry one. And it was all true. I can
Yeah,
vouch for it. I saw him. I saw him drink those shots with Judd. He wasn't even making it up. You know, a lot of here players make stuff up. We know that. Barry's not like that. It's all true. I saw it with my own eyes. No, it was good, wasn't it? It was. That said a lot. I don't think I actually know. You know what? I didn't say it on here. I messaged you after as I meant to. I went to the party. I was there for quite a lot of hours actually, milling around in the hotel, and they were both great, Barry and Judd. And even when they were popping out to use the facilities, people that were in the sort of hotel lobby area, but Judd, Barry, and they just go over, have a good old chat with the fans and pose him a photo. So that's sort of pure snooker, isn't it? But
yeah,
yeah, they were. I had a bit of a chat with Barry, and he was He was very reflective and sad on some levels because not only that, but there was of course the terrible sad news that Terry Griffiths had died, and of course Barry knew him so well, Coach Barry, hadn't he? So it was really sad, reflective night for everyone in the game, really. But that was that sort of very bittersweet element to that night. And but in terms of their conduct, the way they were with people, and they're just brilliant. Snooker players aren't they? Really, we're so lucky with them. And yeah, so thank you. Enjoy the rest of the tournament, Phil. I know you'll cover it brilliantly, and we'll gather again next week.
We will. Lepe fans just beating Sean Murphy, so well done to him. He's got Stuart Bingham next.
That's live. Now that is proper service, folks. Lepe fan, Bingham next. Yeah, my goodness. So the tournament's taking good shape. Lots of big names, as you just heard. Murphy among them. Higgins going out, but plenty of stars still in. And maybe a few up-and-comers might fancy their chances of going a long way as well. So we'll wait and see. Enjoy the rest of the tournament. And thank you for your correspondence. We caught up with it now. And in general, what a busy episode. Loads going on. Well done to Tom Ford for winning the shootout. And yeah, the Snooker Roadshow keeps rolling on, and Christmas round the corner. And let's let everyone get on with their lives now for a while. And any more waffle from me, and say from your old friends Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf, cheerio.